All right, hello out there, and welcome to Adding and Subtracting Rational Expressions, Day 2. So, check it out. You look in this box here, you can see it looks similar to what we did yesterday, but it's also a little bit different. So what you notice in those denominators is that we have polynomials now. Instead of a monomial, instead of one term, we see these polynomial denominators where we have addition and subtraction in the denominator. So here's where we're going to bring it all together. We started this unit talking about factoring and practicing factoring because we had to use factoring when we were doing multiplying to division to simplify. Now we have to use these factors in order to find a least common denominator. So the same idea holds true for what we're doing yesterday. So find the least common denominator, least common denominator, and you can just write LCD if you want in there. I'm going to abbreviate denominator, DEN period. All right, so in order to do this, we have to break down these polynomials into factors. So just like when we were doing multiplication division, we had to factor. So when you see these polynomials, right away you should be saying, all right, let's go to it. Let's factor. All right, so I see x squared minus 3x plus 2. That is a quadratic. And I see that this coefficient is 1 here. So I know I can do this quickly with the big X. On the top is 2. On the bottom is negative 3. And I need factors of 2 to multiply it to negative 3. And that's got to be negative 2 and negative 1. So this is going to factor 2, x minus 2, and x minus 1. And again, we can go straight from the big X to our factors because this is just x squared or 1x squared. We don't have to do that long way and break up the middle term. All right, next. My next denominator, 2x squared minus 2. I can factor 2 out right away, so I'm going to do that. And hopefully right away you guys are thinking and seeing, ooh, x squared minus 1. That is a difference of squares pattern. So I can go straight to my factors from my difference of squares pattern. Square root of x is squared is x, square root of 1 is 1, so it's x plus 1 times x minus 1. All right, so now as we look at these denominators, remember each binomial or each set in parentheses is a factor, okay? So we need to make these look the same. So here we have, what do we need to multiply? Multiply each fraction by, just like we were doing yesterday. Except I think this is easier once you get it factored because they're in factored form and you're just simply looking at those factors. So as I look at this, I'm going to rewrite it here so you guys can see this really clearly. We have 3 over x minus 2 times x minus 1. And that's my first rational. And then we have 5 over 2 times x plus 1 and x minus 1. And again, I like this. I think it's easier to visualize because each of those parentheses is one factor. The coefficient of 2 here is one factor. So I look at it and I say, okay, this has a 2. This needs a 2. Right? This has x plus 1. This doesn't have x plus 1, so it also needs an x plus 1. Okay? So now I have 2, I have x plus 1, x minus 1. This guy has 2, x plus 1, x minus 1. It needs this x minus 2. So I just think, what do I need to multiply those by to get them to be the same? And then we did the same process as yesterday. So whenever we see we determined that LCD is, we know we need to have the same thing in both. That's what we're going to multiply by the tops and the bottoms. So I'm going to take this 2 times x plus 1. I'm going to multiply that in my numerator for my first one. Okay. And in the denominator now, it's 2 times x plus 1 times x minus 2 times x minus 1. Okay. And then I still have that 3, right? I'm going to put that in red so you guys see that original one, right? And then my original here, I guess I can do this in red too, was this part, this x minus 2 and this x minus 1. So see, there's my original. All right. And then on this side, I needed the x minus 2, so I still have the 5. but now I'm going to multiply times that x minus 2 in the numerator. It would be nice if that switched to green for us. Try that again. There we go, x minus 2. And on the bottom, still have all of this, right? So if we want to put that original in red, we can. 2 times x plus 1 times x minus 1. And then again, we're multiplying that. Same as we did on the top is x minus 2. And again, let's switch that to green so we can see a little better. Come on, green. Okay, so you can see now what my original was and what I had to multiply each one by. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to add or subtract just like we did yesterday. So I'm going to simplify these a little bit first because I know I have 2 times 3 here. So I'm going to write this as 6 times x 1. And then plus on this side of 5 times x minus 2. And then my denominator is the same. So remember, this just goes over this whole common denominator. Okay, x plus 1, x minus 2, x minus 1. There's our common denominator. So now you might be thinking, okay, what else can I do? And we're just going to do one more quick thing. Don't do anything to the denominator. It's beautiful. It's in factored form, but we can make this into one single polynomial by simplifying that numerator. Okay, so let's go ahead and simplify the numerator. And we'll get our final simplified answer. And the denominator is going to stay the same. So this is going to be in the numerator 6x plus 6 plus 5x minus 10. Make sure you guys see that's a 6. All right, and we can simplify that. So let's go ahead and write our final answer over here. 6x plus 5x is 11x. 6 minus 10 is negative 4. So there's our numerator, and our denominator stays the same. So we're just going to, again, write that nice factored form of our denominator on the bottom of this fraction. And there we go. That's it. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to do a few of these. So if it seems like a lot, let's recap, and we're going to practice a few. So what's new today is that we have polynomials. When we see polynomials, right away we go straight to, let's factor it. So we factor each one. We can use the big X to organize our thoughts. We're looking for patterns like difference of squares, maybe even difference of cubes. Get them in factored form. Then we figure out what we need to get a common denominator. Then we just multiply and simplify. All right. All right, let's try these out. Okay, so let's do number 1. I know I got to do a little more work here because I see that I have a coefficient of 4 in this polynomial. So let's go ahead and start simplifying that guy. And you know what? I do notice these are all even, so let's start with this. This will make our lives a little easier. Pull that 2 out, and now we have 2x squared minus 7x plus 3. Okay, that makes my life a little easier. I still got to factor it the long way, but I'm going to have smaller numbers here, which is nice for me. So on the top, 2 times 3 is 6, negative 7. My b term goes on the bottom. We'll pause. I'll let you guys think about that for a second. What 2 factors multiply to positive 6? Add up negative 7. Hopefully you're writing that in there now. It's got to be negative 6 and negative 1. All right, so now we're going to take and we're going to split this middle term. All right, so don't lose this 2. Remember, I just like to kind of drop that 2 down so I don't forget about it. This 2x squared stays the same. Let's split that middle term up. So we're going to write it as negative 6x. And we're going to write it as plus negative 1x and then plus 3. All right, now we're going to do our grouping. Group our first 2. Group our second 2. Factor out our common terms. So I can take out a 2x from this first group. And then what's left is x minus 3. Second group, I have this negative 1. We're going to take that out. And that's going to switch our signs, and that's going to make it an x minus 3, which is what I want. So now I drop that 2 down. What I have on the outside is 2x minus 1. There's my first binomial. X minus 3 on the inside is my second binomial. And there's my factored denominator for my second expression there. So yeah, a little bit of work there. But you guys are going to see, again, once I get this factored, watch how easy it is to find our least common denominator. So here, 6x minus 18, I can pull out a 6, and I get x minus 3. Now check it out. Here's what's cool. Both of these have an x minus 3. Now 6 we can think about, right, as 2 times 3. And check that out. We already have a 2 there. So now we're just thinking, what do we need to multiply each of those denominators by to get them to be the same? So this has a 2. This has a 2. It needs a 3. Okay, this has an x minus 3. This has an x minus 3. Okay, so this is good. Right now, this denominator has everything that this has if we multiply it by 3. So now we look up here. We have 2. We have 3. We have x minus 3. All we need is this 2x minus 1. So that's the way I like to think about it. This is what we're going to multiply it by. Needs 2x minus 1. So once I figure out, again, what each one needs, and that's the way I think about it, now I can go ahead and multiply those original expressions by each of those things. And again, as I look at this, what I'm going to do is just take these denominators, and this is really going to be my LCD right here, is going to be all 2 times 2x minus 1 times x minus 3 times 3. So when I rewrite this, I'm just going to go like this. There's the original 5. Now, this needed 2x minus 1, so I'm just going to multiply that numerator times 2x minus 1. Go to my next one. It started with x minus 1. It needs a 3, so it's going to multiply times 3. And then in my denominator, we multiplied. We had this whole denominator now, so it's 2 times 3, which is the 6 that we originally had there. If you want to put 2 times 3, you can. And then we have both of those binomial factors, 2x minus 1 and x minus 3. So I'm kind of combining some steps here. Hopefully you guys are okay with that after the work that we did yesterday with our monomial expressions, because we know once we figure out what to multiply by, we can combine the 2 in the numerator and keep our common denominator as one term. All right? So now all we have to do is simplify that numerator. Remember, once we get this denominator, we're not going to touch it. We like this nice factored form of the denominator, but we are going to simplify this numerator because we can distribute that. Now, I'm going to be careful here because this is a minus. So actually, here's what I want to do. Instead of putting that times 3 at the end, let's get it out of here. And think about it if I put it right in front here, like a coefficient, and now it's like distributing a negative 3. And I'm doing that so I don't make a mistake with the sign. All right? So when I distribute each one of those, I'm just going to write it over here, and then we'll write our final answer so you guys keep track of that this is the numerator. Make sure you always keep track of what's in your numerator, what's in your denominator. So there's that first expression, 10x minus 5. Then distribute that negative 3, and it's going to be negative 3x or minus 3x, and then that's going to change this to a plus 3. So that's our new numerator, and now let's simplify 10x minus 3. I'm going to write it right down here. 10 minus 3 is 7x, and negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2. So there's my numerator. All right, and then our denominator, we're going to end up with the same thing. Don't start getting crazy and think you need to multiply that out because we have this beautiful factored form and we want to keep it that way. All right, look how nice that looks. All right, pause it, recap, take out that homework, start working on some practice. Okay, now's a good time while these things are fresh in your head. I'm going to do one more subtraction and then we'll do some addition. All right, so you'll notice some of these are easy. Some of them take a little bit more time depending on how we need to factor. So let's go to number 2. I'm going to look at those two, and what I like about this is that I can factor quickly with my big X. I have -6 on the top, -1 on the bottom. What two factors multiply to -6 add up to -1. That's going to give us, let's see, -3 and +2. All right, so here's my denominator here is x minus 3 and x plus 2. All right, my denominator here, I can factor out a 5, and that gives me x plus 2. So now again, we look and see what do they have that's the same, what do they need in order to be the same. So I can see that they share this x plus 2. This one has a 5, this doesn't, so this needs a 5. And I like to write this because it reminds me what I need to multiply by. Needs a 5, has the x plus 2, good. This has the 5, this has the x plus 2. This one needs x minus 3. That's what we're multiplying each one by. All right. So again, I'm going to go straight to my numerators, multiply my numerator. So it's going to be 5 times x minus 1 in that first one, okay, minus 4, that's this 4, times x minus 3, because that's what we had to multiply it by to get them to be the same. And then our common denominator on the bottom is just going to be 5 times x minus 3 times x plus 2. And that's how we get them to be the same. So now all we have to do, distribute that -4 and simplify. So we're going to get under my numerator 5x minus 5 minus 4x plus 12. Simplify that guy. So 5x minus 4x is 1x. Give me some more room here. 1x, not -1x. 5 minus 4, 1x, and -5 plus 12. Notice again, -4 times -3. Make sure we get that sign right. Gets me plus 7. And then again, we're going to write our nice common denominator in factored form. 5 times x minus 3 times x plus 2. All right, there we go. So factoring is really what we need. Once we get those factors, think about what each one needs individually, multiply those by the numerator, simplify, and combine. All right, let's go to 3 and 4. I'm going to leave these guys for you for extra practice because they're basically all the same thing. It's more factoring practice. It's looking for those patterns. You guys need that practice. Again, we're going to have a quiz at the end of this week. We will have a test in a couple weeks. So make sure you guys are doing practice and asking questions. So for number 3, your solution is going to be 2x minus 13 over 3 times x plus 2 times x minus 2. And for number 4, if I had this in my solution, after I simplified the numerator, and then I noticed something. And I'll give you guys a second. Take a look at that solution. And I noticed something cool. If I thought of this as a factor, I noticed that this x is negative, this 5 is positive. Sorry, I wrote that wrong because it wouldn't have worked if I wrote it like that. Okay, let's try this again. I noticed that this x is negative and this 5, this 5 is positive. And then this x is positive and this 5 was negative. There, that's what it should be. So you guys should be able to get to there. And once I noticed this, I said, wait a second. Those are opposites. Those are opposites. And I remembered something we did last week where I could factor out a negative and change the sign of both of these. And watch what happens when I did that. This is a really rare case. Usually we won't be able to simplify the numerator and denominator, but we noticed this and check out what happened. When I factored out that -1, we end up with both of those the same. So again, this is a rare case, but we could do this now. And that would give us our final answer as negative 1/6. I thought that was pretty cool. All right, still check out 3 and 4. You got the solutions. Make sure that makes sense to you. And I'm going to do 5 and 6 for you, and then we'll call it a day. All right. Let's get going with this one. Okay, so first of all, again, factoring. We're in that factoring mode, that factoring mindset. This is already binomial. It's already factored. Awesome. We don't have to do anything. But we are going to factor this x squared plus 9x plus 18. And again, I like this. I get happy when I see these. It saves me a lot of time. X squared is by itself. So once I figure out what multiplies to 18 and adds up to 9, I can just go straight to my factored form. All right, who's got it? I'll give you guys a second. Multiply to 18, add up to 9. All right, a couple of you guys got it. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 plus 3 is 9. So now check this out. This factored form is just x plus 6, x plus 3. And you should be saying like, oh, that's awesome, because this guy already has an x plus 6, which means all I need to do is multiply this one by x plus 3. That's what it needs. And this doesn't need anything. So that's awesome. So this is going to stay the same. We're going to multiply this one times x plus 3. And we get 4x plus 5 times x plus 3. Now, if you wrote it up there, you might want to do that distributing in this step as well. And then our common denominator is just x plus 6 and x plus 3. And look how easy this one is, because it worked out that way. All we have to do now, distribute that 5, simplify the numerator, and we are done. On the top one, we get 4x plus, actually I'll write it over here, 4x plus 5x plus 15. And then our denominator stays the same. So that's going to get our final answer when we simplify 4x plus 5x is 9x plus 15 in our numerator. And our denominator is x plus 6, x plus 3. Boom. We're done. All right, so let's go to number 6. All right, same idea here. Notice, again, love this. Binomial factored, done, love this. X, or my coefficient equals 1. So again, I know this is going to be quick to factor. 27, negative 12. Give you guys a second. 2 factors of 27 that add up to negative 12. And we know they both have to be negative because I got a positive product and a negative sum. And let's see, 9 times 3 is 12. 9 times 3 is 27. 9 plus 3 is 12. There we go. So again, check this out. This factors to y minus 9 times y minus 3. And this already has the y minus 3. So this is really like our last one. All we have to do is multiply this guy. It needs a y minus 9. So that's going to go in the numerator. That's going to go in the denominator. And here we go. 8 times y minus 9 plus. I'm going to go ahead and add this next numerator. Make it one fraction, combine, and my common denominator is y minus 9 and y plus 3. Not too bad at all. Some of these work out really nicely and aren't too bad. Some of these you've got to do a little more work on. Okay, all about factoring. All right, 8y minus 72 plus 2y minus 5 in my numerator. And when I simplify that, 8y plus 2y gives me 10y. Negative 72 minus 5 gives me negative 77. And in our denominator, y minus 9 times y minus 3. All right, and there we go. All right, so some of you guys have been asking how you can raise your grades. So I put together a little mixture review for you. And I would like for you, it's in your notes, 7, 8, 9, your monomials from yesterday. 10 and 11, we got some polynomials in here. So I'll keep it on here in case you guys lost your note packets. So you can copy these down. Pause this if you need to, copy them down. You guys can work these out on, if you have a tablet, that's fine. Work them out on paper. You can use the scan feature on Google Drive on your phone. So if you guys haven't tried that yet, download Google Drive app on your phone. When you're in your folder, hit the plus, and you have the scan feature. You can just take a picture, and you can either share it with me as a Google Drive file, or you can email it to me directly. But again, those of you guys that want to improve your grades, I want to see 7, 8, and 9 worked out, and 10 and 11 worked out, okay? Otherwise, go ahead and get going on your homework and make sure you email me with any questions. All right. Until next time, adios.